what is current news, excuse me, as a content strategy. So current news is literally current news. It's what's happening. It's what your audience is talking about at length, right? And so here's just a really quick example. So for each one of these, I provide one example for each one. So one quick example that I utilize is I will actually go to a website where my client's target audience frequents. So in this case, this was like one of the Acorn websites. So some of my clients sell like Black financial literacy courses and things like that. So I know that their audience, they're reading publications, blogs, websites, etc., that are centered around wealth. Okay. So I went to the Acorn blog and literally I just looked over at the section. Most websites or blogs have a little section on the homepage that will show you the most read articles or blog posts. They have that on their website. Go look for that and see what the trending articles are on that website. Now, the reason why this is so clutch and it's such a hack is because you don't have to do any of the hard work. You know what I'm saying? The audience has already affirmed to you that this is what people want to hear. They're already reading this information. They're eating it up. Obviously, that's why the content is trending on the website, right? So it's really clutch because you don't really have to do anything. You just go and see what's already trending on a publication or, again, a website, a blog, or whatever that's relevant to your audience, and then you just speak about it. That's literally how this works. So that's the current news content strategy. And honestly, this is probably one of my favorite out of all of them, just because if someone or if your audience is already engaging in a conversation and they're super passionate about it, for your brand to chime in on that discussion is a really, really powerful thing. It really makes you relatable. And it just shows that you do have a voice. And sometimes you all may have heard the saying that people don't buy from brands, they buy from people. And that's so true. And this is a way to humanize your brand, is when you can chime in and share a perspective on something that your audience is already talking about anyway. Another hack, and I didn't put it on the presentation here, but another hack that I use to figure out, like, okay, what's some current news that I can write about in the emails for my clients, is I will go into Facebook groups where my clients' audience frequent, and I will go and find the post inside of Facebook that has the most comments, right? So there are several groups on Facebook that I'm a part of, again, mainly on behalf of my clients, because I have to go and write the emails on their behalf, right? So I will go into these groups and I will literally, there is a way to search, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a way to search for, like, trending posts, if you will, inside of a group. I go into the group and any post that has like over 100 comments, and it's not like 100 comments from some of these people online, these cyber thugs that get a little crazy. So it's not like 50 of those comments come from the cyber thug and then the rest come from everyone else. No, I'm looking at a diverse number of people that are engaging and that are passionate about what's being said in that post. And I will literally use that in the copy for my clients' emails. So that's another hack. So that's current news. Now let's go to the next one. Urgent news. So urgent news, again, it's pretty self-explanatory, but then again, it's not. So urgent news is something that is indeed urgent, meaning that it has a very immediate and direct impact on your audience. So an example of some urgent news would be if your company falls victim to some sort of malware, or, you're compromised because someone has hacked into your customer relationship management software and stolen your customer data, that's an example of urgent news. So in the event of urgent news, you don't necessarily sell anything. It's really more of an informational situation, right? There's a catastrophe that has occurred. You just want to go ahead and, try to put some water to the flames and let your audience know, hey, we are aware that this has happened. This is what we're doing to fix the matter. And we will continue to keep you updated within the next 24 hours, right? At this point, there's nothing that we are asking you to do. We will circle back with you in 24 hours. So that is an example of urgent news. It's something that has a very direct and immediate impact on your audience. And it's something that's going to require them to take an action right away. Most times that's not going to be something that you're selling. Again, it's more like an emergency situation, not something that you're going to try to pitch them to buy. Obviously what's happening in the world with Europe, if you have an audience that has some interest, some sort of investments or something in Ukraine, well, obviously the attack that's occurring that's urgent, very urgent, that you want to let your audience know right away, hey, the country is at war with Russia, now's the time to try to pull out those assets or whatever the case may be. So those are a couple of examples of urgent news. Next one, tips and advice. So an example of tips and advice would be, okay, if a customer purchases your product or service and then they leave you some feedback on what worked for them, right? Like something that they really liked about your product, you can actually use that little tidbit. Now, if you don't get the customer's permission, you can't just go and copy paste their entire thing and give them credit, right? But what you can do is take a snippet of it, leave them anonymous, and then literally share how the customer benefited from your product or service. So that's one way that you can kind of find data or some information for tips and or advice. Another example, and this is a hack that I used when I was writing my book. So literally, when I was writing Words Are Wealth, and I was thinking about my target audience, I was like, you know what? I need to go on Amazon. I'm going to read Amazon reviews for books in my industry, which is the copywriting industry, email marketing more specifically. And I'm going to read the 5-star reviews and see, are there some words that keep recurring in the reviews? And then I'm going to read the 1-star reviews and find out what was missing from that book that I can then use to put in my book, right? So when I was doing the research, there were some people that left 1-star reviews for a couple of email marketing books. And they were saying, hey, they didn't have any templates in their books. They didn't have any examples. I hated this book or whatever, right? So what did I do? Oh, I'm going to add some templates to my book because clearly people are upset because they didn't have templates in the book that they read. So I'm going to go in and fill in that gap. So I'm using Amazon as an example, but you guys, you can use this with any platform, right? If you're selling apparel and let's say you specialize in a certain type of dress, I would recommend that you go to your competitor's website, look at the reviews for their dresses, find out what do people love about those dresses and what do people hate about those dresses. And guess what you're going to do? You will fill in the gaps by addressing those pain points from the 1-star reviews and then hyping up what you have with the 5-star, whatever you have in common with the 5-star reviews. So that is yet another way in which you can get some content as it relates to tips and advice, is just simply by looking at reviews on Amazon or whatever, industry that you're in. Of course, Amazon sells everything. So you can find reviews about anything on Amazon. But I would go and look at the competitor's website, look at their reviews. Again, you're looking at a few of the 5-star, a few of the 1-star, and your goal is to fill in the gaps with the 1-star reviews. And then with the 5-star reviews, your goal is just to make sure that your product or service actually offers those things that people really, really like. So that's tips and advice. Last but not least, are events. So remember in the beginning of this conversation, I know a couple of you came in a little late, but what we did at the very beginning of this conversation is we opened up our minds to believing in ourselves, right? To believing in our capability to be successful and to attract wealth to ourselves. And so with this particular content strategy, I think it's ever so important to lean into that. The reason why I say that is because you don't need permission to make something an event, right? Oftentimes when people think about an event, they're like, oh, well, okay, Dr. King Day, or now like this month, Women's History Month, right? We need to frame something around that. I mean, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can create your own event. You don't have to wait for the government to say, oh, this is relevant. Think about Juneteenth. Did we wait for the United States government to acknowledge our history? No, we didn't. We were already acknowledging it before the government caught up. They eventually caught up because we were already affirming ourselves and celebrating Juneteenth with or without their validation, right? So it's the same thing in business. If there is a date that is significant to you, like for example, with me, every May 19th, because I absolutely love Malcolm X, That's a holiday for me. So I send out emails to clients about Malcolm X and acknowledging him and his life and what he did for mankind, right? That's a holiday for our company. Your birthday may be a holiday for you. Maybe the day you started your business, maybe the anniversary of you starting at the company that you're at today, right? Those are events. You can make those events if you want. So just to show you an example, one of my clients is Black Wealth Renaissance. They have a very sizable following on Instagram. They own a podcast that's pretty popular and talks about Black wealth and all of that. And what they decided to do is create like an event week. So they call it Black Wealth Weekend. Now this week, I'm sorry, this year, they're going to make a week out of it. But last year they made it a weekend and it was a hit. And what's so really cool about this is that they usually host this event around the time that their company was actually formed. So again, for them, the date in which their company was formed, that's a holiday for them. That is an event. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you or give you permission to make a date that's special to you an event. So I just wanted to stress that it is 100% up to you, but obviously as it relates to copywriting and events, if you decide the day that your company was formed is an event for you, then you can start writing emails about that event, right? About why that's special to you and how your company plans to honor that date. Maybe you're going to give them a special discount code or something like that. So that is the C.U.T.E content strategy.